Hello and welcome to All Elite Morro. I'm on a new setup. I have no idea what it sounds like. Um, I feel like there's a bit of interference coming in the background, which is annoying me. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case. Uh, this is the temporary setup. Doing some renovations here. Um, Also, we didn't get out any of the social stuff today because I don't know if you've seen on the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show homepage or whatever you want to call it, the Instagram page. Shane spent the day building a ring in his back garden, and it looks awesome. But obviously, the man was busy and he wasn't responding to any of my 1,000 text messages, SMS messages, WhatsApp messages. Um, None of that stuff. So, yeah, thanks, Shane. If you're watching, I'm assuming you're running the ropes or whatever it is you're doing. But we have a jam packed All Elite Morrow lined up this evening. If you're in the chat, just stick in a message. Tell me what it sounds like. Tell me if it's working. I mean, like I said, I'm in a completely new setup for the time being. Um, is there background interference on the sound? I feel like it's coming through my headphones, even though I upgraded the microphone whole system. Got some, as I said, I'm on a different setup, so I was able to, with the screen behind me, stick the All Elite Morrow logo on the screen. No, I got a new light as well, and I never set it up. It's supposed to be shining on my face. There's supposed to be a light shining on my face. Will I set it up? Nah, I won't bother. You'll get to see that on Total Extreme Morrow, probably next week. Sounds great. Okay. Thanks, Oshin. David Cottle. Thanks very much. All good. Um, yeah, I got a light for my face as well to try and give the background some depth. But all this stuff arrived while I'm in the middle of renovating my office. Um, so I said I'd just stick it up here in a spare bedroom. But the office won't be complete for a while. Oh, Jesus. That's the thing with the new microphone. If I clip off anything, it makes an awful noise. But it's good to know that we're sounding good, looking good there, according to David. Thank you very much. It's only younger I'm looking. Um, yeah, big show lined up. A lot of shit went down this week. Actually, like, I kept adding. So, what I do when I'm preparing for All Elite Morrow is as things crop up during the week, I make a note of it on my phone. Um, and the thing just kept swelling and swelling and swelling, and I kept changing the order of stuff. I feel like it was kind of like a low key big news week in wrestling. Um, so we'll just get straight into that stuff, seeing as Shane didn't send out any of the social stuff. I suppose the biggest story of the week was the return of AJ Lee. Well, one of the biggest stories, pretty big. It was my lead. I led with that one. That was the headline. AJ Lee's return. I thought initially, firstly, I thought the angle between Punk and Becky on Raw to set it up was quite a good angle. I thought the two of them were excellent in it. I didn't like the little slappy thing. The way they did it. I liked the idea that they did do it. I just didn't like how it was done. I thought it was too. I thought just they were going a little over the top with the style of slappy. Um, I thought the Marina Chef Fear slapping Hangman was done better. I felt like that moment had more impact. But I thought in terms of like the promos out of Punk and Becky, I thought both the promos were excellent. And then building up to the what you call it, SmackDown on Friday, the actual return of AJ Lee, the crowd went ballistic. I just thought it was done really well. My only concern is that, Seth is involved, and you know my feelings on Seth. I'm not a huge fan of his work. I think he's just a bit of a dullard. I've used that word a ton of times. But yeah, I just thought the overall thing was done very well. They built a lot of excitement around it. The angle itself was excellent. AJ Lee looked phenomenal. I don't like the period of WWE when she was on top, or she was like close to the top, was, or when she was like almost the revolution before the revolution. Um, I just wasn't watching a whole lot of WWE at that time. Uh, so probably there's people like, let's say you were watching at that time, it probably hit a little bit harder for you than it did for me. But just seeing people online reacting to it and it meaning so much to them when you pull off something like that, I think that should be celebrated. Regardless of my own personal feelings, like I don't have a major connection to her time period in wrestling, but when Punk came back on that rampage a few years ago, uh, I was marking out big time for that. So I like, yeah, if people have similar feelings for this, then awesome. And I think an AJ Lee and Becky program could be really really cool in 2025. I hope it's not just a one and done with a mixed tag match. That would be disappointing. There isn't any really leaks on what kind of length the contract is, but if it's WWE, they generally tend to try and tie people up for a decent period of time at the very least. And it's probably like I don't expect her after the mixed tag match to be like a weekly TV character, but I would say she will be semi regular, and I really hope we get like a series of singles matches because like they have a lot of talent there. SmackDown certainly needs an injection. Um, I expect that the rating isn't out for Friday SmackDown yet, but I expect that it will have got a big bump over the previous week. I like that they held it for the main event. Um, and yeah, I just thought all around excellent piece of business. What are your guys' thoughts on it? Did you watch it? Did you stay up and watch it live? Were you that excited for it? I obviously didn't watch it live. Late on a Friday night. But I thought, yeah, excellent piece of business. Really well done. I thought like Punk came out of it looking well. Becky came out of it looking well. AJ obviously came out of it looking phenomenal. I chose this picture. Why? Because Triple H is just the most infuriating, attention seeking man in the business. I seen someone yesterday tweet out, it wasn't this exact picture, it was the picture of Paul and AJ Lee on their own. And it's just, he said, like, why does Triple H keep doing this? I'm like, well, isn't it not plainly obvious why he's doing it? He wants to get the credit for everything. He wants, like, he loves taking credit. So now he's the guy who brought AJ Lee back. Um, Oshin thought the whole angle was made by Becky selling with her facial expressions. Yeah, sometimes I think like Becky has a tendency to go over the top on the facial expressions. I know it's like very much a kind of modern pro wrestling thing. Like I'm doing that Masawa-ton at the moment, and I had this debate. Well, I'm not going to say argument. I had this debate with Shane before about, do you know, the kick out face that everyone does. That like, oh my god, I can't believe they kicked out with my move. And I was watching Jumbo Saruta, and somebody kicked out of one of his moves, whatever, and he didn't do like the big shocked face. He did this like he just this like internalized frustration, and I was like, yes, this is what I've always wanted to see. So I do think facial expressions are like, and Omega's even one of my favorite wrestlers. He goes way over the top with his facial expressions. It's just something I'd like to see toned down a bit in modern wrestling. But I did think Becky's selling of like the shock, the surprise, of the fear, was like done really well. Like, and the selling of that is so important. I like, if you know what I love in I love comparing things in films to wrestling. Like, how does somebody build a heel, build a villain in a movie, and it always comes down to the response. Not even a heel, or like the showing up of a badass character. I thought Becky did an excellent job of that. Cottle Crow's super happy she's back. Do you think they also used it? Yes. yes, 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 call to take attention away from Brock earlier in the evening, absolutely. And that is actually the next segment on All Elite Morro, so we will definitely get into that. I think it was good, but the fact that with AJ and even Penta earlier this year, they just give up trying to keep the secret kind of ruins a surprise for me. Yeah, I think there's two ways you can look at that, Kel. I do agree, but also what you really want is enough of a rumor out there to build excitement and make sure people are watching the show and make sure the arena tickets are sold. So you want the rumor out there that they're coming back, but you don't want it confirmed. This one probably tipped over a little bit too much into that confirmed aspect. Like there was no doubt she was coming back, and there was no doubt Penta was coming in. So yeah, that's a weird balance, and like I don't know, like if you can blame them for that as such, because getting that balance right is exceptionally hard. Um, like I thought AEW did it, they got it right once and they got it wrong once. The time they got it right was with Punk the first time. There was enough of a rumor out there to sell out an arena and get the biggest rating they've ever gotten on Rampage. While at the same time, it left a kernel of doubt. It was like, but what if he doesn't show up? Whereas with Mercedes, um, when they did that Boston show for her debut, it was all but confirmed. And with the AJ Lee thing as well, I think it was all but confirmed. Now, I do think the AJ one was handled a little bit better than the Mercedes one that time, in that there was slightly more doubt, but there wasn't much doubt in this. And I get where you're coming from. Sometimes you want to keep the surprise. Like when it's a big star coming back and somebody who captures the imagination, you do want to get a TV rating over it. I understand that, and you do want to sell tickets. But like, because I think it's pretty obvious this stage that Jericho is going to go back to WWE. With Jericho, should they not advertise it beforehand, but should they leak the rumor that he's going to be in the Rumble or whatever it is, or should they just let number 30 hit in the Rumble and it's Chris Jericho? Um, I think with someone like Jericho, you could probably just do it as a straight up surprise. Now, obviously, there's going to be rumors at the time, but yeah, I did think the AJ one slightly possibly tipped over into the uh, taking away the surprise. But like at the end of the day, it's a business, and you want to sell tickets, and you want to get as many. And here's the reason why I think we're going to get into it on like segment 4 or 5 of this show today. Um, but SmackDown the week before this did its record low in history TV rating. So having this the following week to try and bounce back from their record low TV rating on a night when there was actually NFL on a Friday night, which isn't always the case. Was it the Rams or someone were playing? I can't remember. So they're probably up against a bit of NFL as well. Um, After having their previous record low rating the previous week, they probably do want to get the rumor out there that Edge is coming back to try and get that rating back to where it was previously. Now, this is kind of the, what would you call it, the canary in the coal mine. Um, what they did here, I thought it was just super shady. They snuck Brock back in on a night where the headlines will be about AJ. I thought they used AJ's. I thought they used the goodwill that would come around AJ Lee's return in order to launder what it means to have Brock Lesnar back on TV. Um, I just thought it was super shady, and I look, it's obvious why they did it. Like, of course, you bring Brock in on the night you're debuting AJ Lee because all the headlines are going to be about AJ Lee. All the social media is going to be about AJ Lee. All the people like me on the internet who react. I know I'm not a reactor, but all those people who react to shit. All their TikToks are going to be about AJ Lee, but at the same time, Brock Lesnar's there as well, and they did it on the same night. And yeah, to me, that's just super shady, and it's just indicative of this company, and it's almost an admission from this company of they know what they're doing with Brock. And it just always leaves a bad taste in my mouth because you get this like really positive thing of AJ Lee returning after 10 years, but you also, as if you're a fan, or if you're someone, if you're just a fan of wrestling, I'm not a fan of WWE. I'm a fan of wrestling, and I want shit to be. I want, I want it to be good, because then it's more good shit for me to watch. Um, but it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It's like you do the super positive thing, but you also use that positive thing as a way of sneaking Brock back in, and getting Brock on your TV. Like the only other time we've seen Brock since the 44, or the 44 times he was named in the Janelle Grant lawsuit, is it was behind a paywall. We'll say it wasn't on an actual TV show, if that makes sense. But now they've brought him back on TV. David Ayers says, how do they get around the next Brock appearance? Well, see, the next Brock appearance, I believe, is going to be at WrestlePalooza, on a night where they're already getting around it, because they have the AJ Lee CM Punk versus Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch mixed tag match, and they're doing it like it's this kind of, it's their first night on ESPN. So the media surrounding that show and the social media reactions surrounding that show will be very heavily ESPN based slash AJ Lee's first match based. So that, again, they're, in my opinion, they're kind of sneaking that in there. Uh, and I don't know, how much of Brock do we see after. Do you think he goes away for a while after this Cena match? I don't think he becomes a, like, apparently his contract is for, his new contract is for very limited dates. Um, so maybe it's 3 dates. Maybe it's the two we've gotten and the Cena match, and that's him a free agent again. It came out during the week that his contract was up, in that time he was gone, and that WWE didn't renegotiate with him because they knew AEW wouldn't touch him. Even though he's a free agent, and obviously a lot of people would say he's a big, big star. So I think they've already gotten around what could be his final appearance, which is the actual Cena match itself at WrestlePalooza, because that's their first night in ESPN. So there's no doubt that during that day, or even probably, we'll start to see a push on it sometime in the next few days, because we're 12 days out from that now. But oh yeah, he'll probably show up in Saudi. They'll actually, that's it, David. They'll use him in Saudi a lot. Um, but we're going to see a push on ESPN over the next few days, building advertising for WrestlePalooza and all that kind of stuff. Um, how much of that is going to be Brock based, I don't know. But ESPN aren't going to speak about any of the shady shit going on. They'll just, in a really positive manner, push the show itself. So, like, I don't know, is there any surprise they can get away with this, because they're able to use something like an AJ Lee return to launder the fact that they're also sticking Brock back in as well. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I would think they're not going to have to worry about it for this ESPN show, and if they keep them for Saudi shows in future, again, they're not going to have to worry about it, because just those Saudi shows is almost like they brought Hogan to Saudi. It's like almost like a who cares. They're already working with Saudi. Look, I didn't live in Saudi, but I lived in the region. Saudi has an awful human rights record, and they don't seem to care about that either. So it's just like they really, really make it hard for me as a wrestling fan to like the company. I know, like, people will often on the internet call me an AEW guy. I'm not particularly, in my own opinion, an AEW guy. I'd like lots of different types of professional wrestling. Um, and the one I probably like the least is WWE, partly because I don't like, in general, the style of wrestling they present. They obviously have a ton of amazing wrestlers there whose work I love, but the presentation of professional wrestling in their mind is not the style I enjoy. AEW is closer to that. AEW is the only, like, weekly professional wrestling company that does a style, or that produces a style that I like. Um, but for the most of the time, like, my favorite presentation of professional wrestling was like New Japan, or at the minute I'm doing the Masawa Tan. So, um, basically what that is, I'm doing a video for the channel now. I'm miles away from having it ready, but I'm watching 130 Masawa matches, ranging from 1990 until 2009, and then I'm making a video about the experience of watching 130 Misawa matches in a short space of time. But like, if I was to choose a style of presentation for professional wrestling that I would like to watch on a weekly basis, it would be that like All Japan 90s style. Or if it couldn't be that, it'd be like the 2016 to 2021 or 2020-ish New Japan style of pro wrestling presentation. So, like me in general, I'm just not a fan of how WWE presents wrestling. But I'm a fan of a lot of wrestlers there, and I do want to watch a lot of the matches on their shows. But obviously, by using Edge Elite to launder Brock back into the shows, it kind of kills my enjoyment of it. I'm actually going to come back. Did I? Yeah. So here's another one. Let's jump to this one for now. So also, it was announced during the week, or it came out during the week. I don't think they've made an official announcement yet. But Cena's last match on, I believe, the 13th of December, was originally supposed to be in Boston, who had bid 7 million to get the match. It's going to be on a Saturday night's main event. But that has now been moved to Washington, D.C., because Washington, D.C. have bid more money for it. So it turns out that Cena probably will have a final performance, or I don't even know if it's going to be a match, but he will appear in Boston, his hometown, one more time. Um, but yeah, again, it just gets back to that thing of they're picking commerce over what's actually a genuinely real good moment. Like Cena's last performance, like of his whole career, this is fucking John Cena we're talking about, you know. Yeah, they're ramming it down our throat that he's the goat. Look, he's not the goat, but like he is a hugely significant figure in modern professional wrestling history and probably all-time professional wrestling history. He's a guy who's gotten, I don't know, tons. Like if you look at current fans that probably range from the age of like 20 to 34 or 5, Cena's probably responsible for a significant portion of them becoming fans of wrestling in the first place. So he's a hugely significant figure in professional wrestling history. And I hate the fact that they've moved his final match out of his home city simply because Washington DC uh, have have bid more money than Boston, when Boston were bidding 7 million anyway. Like, when is enough enough? You're getting 7 million to get Cena's last match. Like, what are they getting out of DC? Is it going to be another 2 million? But this is a company that like makes like money hand over fist. This new SPN deal is getting them 380 or 340 million a year just for their PLEs. Um, all their various TV deals get them like over 1 billion per year. Like an extra 2 or 3 million of a site fee for Cena's last match. Just like, is it really worth it to take it out of Boston? Or like, I wonder, it's on in DC. What do you think? Is Trump going to be there? Um, do you think Trump is going to be there at Cena's last match? Like, in some ways, like it would be cool in the modern day for a professional wrestler's retirement match to have a sitting president at the match. But because it's Trump, it feels super grimy in that we know, like we already see with UFC, the levels of propaganda that um, they're willing to go to support Trump, like real propaganda type stuff. And also, I feel like it being in DC increases the likelihood as well that Vince is there. Um, he has connections through his wife and also through long term friendships to the current administration. So, and the actual sitting president. So I think it feels like it. Anything is possible. He'll probably be in Cena's car. Yeah. David has also said he thinks Cena's the GOAT in what they want from a wrestler and what WWE want from a wrestler. Yeah, I like, you know, I suppose it depends on time periods, really, doesn't it? Like, hard to argue against Hogan in terms of what they want, and like really hard to argue against Bruno in terms of what um, Vince Senior wanted. Um, do you think VKM will be there on screen or not from Cottle? Cottle, I think if he's there, he's going to be on screen. Would you be surprised if he was like, if Trump is there? and they cut to the box and it's Vince sitting beside Trump, would that surprise you one bit? And how do you think the crowd would react? I think they'd get a huge pop. Weirdly enough, I think they'd get a huge pop. I think so. Like, it's a fascinating thing to think about in advance. I guess we'll find out in 3 months' time. But look, it could be a case where neither Vince nor Trump are there. But we've like every interview Cena's done. This is one thing that I don't think he's handled. Like, Cena's a very canny operator in the media, and there's one thing I don't think he's handled very well at all is the Vince questions. Um, and like he continues to profess his loyalty and love for Vince for giving. Look, I suppose you can be when somebody does something shitty and they're a big part of your life. I don't know how you react. Um, so like it's hard for us to sit here and judge how Cena reacts to the Vince thing. But I don't think he's handled it very well, and you're kind of led to believe that he still has a connection to Vince. And also with all those wrestlers showing up at Vince's 80th birthday party there a couple of weeks ago, I feel like we're getting a kind of a soft launch again on Vince. They're almost like priming us to see how vociferous the reaction is. It's like you said, it's It's like you said about Brock. The people would know what's coming, so it would be easy to squeeze them in subconsciously without there being any backlash. Yeah, exactly. Like I, and I feel like that started already with that, with the who was it, Drew, Sheamus, um, a few of them showed up at his Vince's 80th birthday party a few weeks ago. Like in my opinion that was like a soft launch almost. It's like let's have photos of wrestlers at Vince's 80th birthday party leak and see how vociferous the online reaction is, and we can kind of judge based off that if it's like there's always going to be a bit of a backlash, but is it so bad that we can't handle it, or is it a case of okay, yeah, there was a bit of a backlash, but it actually doesn't really make a difference. And like nothing seems to make a difference to WWE's both their bottom line and their fan base anyway. So like, if you're them, why not have Vince back? If you think having Vince back for a couple of episodes of SmackDown will pop a rating, I'm sure to do it. Or like, look at Triple H's booking style. This guy loves surprises. I don't know what he's going to do next year because, like, realistically, how many big returns can he do? I suppose they've written off Roman now, so that's one they could do. Jericho's one they could do. But like in terms of nostalgia returns, because like going back to the early 2000s, there's nobody left because they're all old guys and they can't wrestle anymore. They got their Goldberg one. Um, so you're kind of going back to the AJ Lee era now for big returns. And like, who's there? Jericho. Who else? Who? What's a big return now that they can use to like create a moment in like as the way Triple H likes to book. I can only think of Jericho, like right back. That I doubt they're going to bring him back, and would that make a difference? Um, who else was big in the early 2010s that they could bring back to create another kind of viral moment like this? And like, don't get me wrong, I know I'm seeming really negative now. I actually thought the moment with Edge Lee's return was done exceptionally well. Um, but there isn't any other returns they can do. Like you have to wait 3 years to even think about doing a Mercedes or a Moxley return. And I could see in 3 years' time or whatever, maybe Mercedes come back for a short run. I could see it. I'm not sure if she would do it. Because again, she turned down mega money to go there anyway. Um, and I don't think Moxley will ever go back. So there's two from that mid 2010s era that they could use, but like they're locked in for I think both of them. Mercedes another 2 years anyway, and I think Mox is like 2028, like around this time 2028. So like they're running out of people they can use to do these big kind of pop returns with. Um, but yeah, I suppose they'll get one out of Jericho. Uh, when's Edge and Christian's deals up? That is a good question. Let me think. I think Christian is into his second contract. So we'd be looking at, depending if he's definitely into a second contract. Depending if he signed a 3 or 5 year extension. it would be either 2028 or 2030. I think 2028. I think his original contract was 3 years. Now he may have signed a 3 year extension, which is kind of what they do with some of the older guys. So his could actually be up in 2026. Edge, see, Edge will have time added for injuries potentially because he's been injured twice. So he could be 2026, 27, depending on that time added for injuries. That is a really good one, Dev. I could see Edge and Christian going back for a run. Christian so and so, but Edge definitely. Yeah, I think Gushing Edge would be done for injury time. Like you take the two injuries that Edge has had, um, the leg break, and he had another. What was the other one? It was something smaller, but it was still a couple of months. So the bones of a year will be getting added to Edge's contract, unless Tony just goes, yeah. Um, do I ever think Omega will go to WWE? So I've said this on the main podcast a few times. Right now, my answer would be no to that question, for a couple of reasons. When he decides he's retiring, um, I would have said yes a few years ago, and here's why I'm saying no now. I think we're kind of close to at least a semi-retirement for Omega now. Like we're maybe 2, 3 years away, and then we might see him sporadically do big matches here and there. Um, but he will want New Japan to be a part of his retirement tour. Uh, so that could never happen with WWE, for two reasons. They're obviously New Japan have a partnership with AEW, so and I don't like New Japan are the type of company who won't ever create a partnership with WWE because they know that in partnership terms WWE are quite um, encroaching, and they're quite one-sided in their partnerships. So they did have a partnership in the early 90s, with that fizzled out. And yeah, so I couldn't see Omega going there simply because if he's planning on retirement, which I think is coming soon, and he still has a few years left, I don't think even Omega will make it to the end of his current AEW contract before he retires. So for that reason, I did think that was a possibility, but the guy has had multiple surgeries at what's getting to a quite an advanced age. Um, he's got a decent chunk of time left on his AEW contract, and he will want New Japan to be a part of his retirement tour, or at least he'll have one of his last matches in New Japan. So for that reason, that's a really good question, Kale. For that reason, I couldn't see it. But if you'd asked me that about 12, 18 months ago, because Omega was pissed off in AEW after all the Punk stuff went down. There was enough kernels in the media out there for us to know that he was pissed off. And I think the fact that everything changed. So when when Omega, Hangman, and the Young Bucks re-signed contracts while the Punk stuff was happening on Collision, I think that made up Punk's mind that he was getting out and going back to WWE at that stage. Um, and I think once Punk went to WWE and Omega, Hangman, and the Bucks re-signed with AEW, I think that was probably the end of any opportunity for Omega to go to WWE. Um, so yeah, I don't see it happening now. David, Jericho will 100% still be wrestling when Omega retires. Jericho will probably still be wrestling when, oh, I don't know, like MJF retires. He'll be old and saggy. Like that guy just will keep going and going and going. More he'll be like, I suppose. Remember when Steamboat came back and wrestled Jericho? It was like Backlash 2005 or something. Maybe all six in that mid 2000s anyway. Jericho's probably as old now as Ricky Steamboat was in that match. Now, I've never looked up the dates or anything, but I'm assuming Jericho's similar age now to what Steamboat was then. And there seems to be no sign of Jericho slowing down. Like, I'm 99.99% sure he's going to sign, at the very least, a 3 year contract with WWE in January, February, whenever I think his AEW deal is up around January. The first contract he signed was in January 2019. I think his latest contract, he did a couple of 3 year extensions. I think the latest one is up, so it'll be up before the Royal Rumble, uh, based on when he signed his initial contract. I think his initial contract was something like the 8th or 9th of January 2019. So his latest one should be up around that time, 2026. So I expect to see Jericho in the Royal Rumble, and I expect Jericho to sign at minimum a 3 year contract, maybe even a 5 year contract. Now, I'm assuming the latter half of that contract will be quite heavily part time, simply because the man will be like 55 or 6 or something. Um, but yeah, so yeah, then on to Dynamite. I thought Dynamite was great this week. And we'll get into the rain stuff in a second because that's super interesting as well. They had a terrible rain. But what I loved about Dynamite this week is I predicted this after what was the last pay per view, Forbidden Door. That I said we're moving into the period where the Don Callis family is now going to be the top heel faction instead of the Death Riders. But I actually said in that I think that really won't be cemented until like early 2026. But I was wrong. They've really gone with that like quickly. This All Star Tag main event was sensational. Um, Don Callis family and the Bucks versus so Fletcher and Josh Alexander and the Young Bucks versus Omega, Hangman, and Jet Speed. This was a sensational main event. All Star Tag stuff. Just like Young Bucks are the kings of putting together big multi man matches. Um, but I thought the closing angle here with Kyle doing the brain buster off the apron through the table on Omega was just perfect TV wrestling. And then we see on Collision that Kyle Fletcher challenges Hangman for All Out, the world title match. I hope they main event with that. I was saying all along that I felt like they needed to do a main event because they're going up against Brock versus Cena, which is a nostalgia match. That's going to be on WrestlePalooza. They're going up against um, AJ and CM Punk versus Becky and Seth, which is kind of a nostalgia match. That's going to be on WrestlePalooza. So what I was saying all along, what they need to do is the AEW main event on the same day. It's day now, not night. We'll get into my thoughts on the time change in a moment. What they need to do is main event with two young homegrown talents who will have an exceptional professional wrestling match. And I thought the way they finished Forbidden Door and with MJF getting his briefcase thingy back, his contract back, that was being done to set up an MJF versus Hangman match as the main event for All Out. They swerved me. I'm guessing that's going to come down the line, that rematch. But they're going with Fletcher versus Hangman. And I actually think, look, Fletcher isn't the draw that Hangman is. Or, sorry, that MJF is as a heel. Um, but he's not going to become that draw until you put him in positions uh, to like put him in positions with the top guys. And he's been like he had his crazy insane run against Osprey where those matches were just insane, excellent. But he's never really rubbed shoulders with the top guys uh, on a consistent basis. And if this is his push to the top of the card, like he doesn't need to win the title here, but if he has a good showing in a main event of a pay per view that sells a lot of tickets in the arena, which it is already doing, and sells a lot of pay per views, that will really elevate him to being ready to hold the title sometime in 2026. So David Ayers says Takeshita beats Okada in the C2. Then Okada goes on to beat Hangman next year. David, that is my exact prediction. I think the timing of the C2 might be difficult for Takeshita because it's in December and he's going to be main event and I believe the Tokyo Dome on the 4th of January. So is he going to risk injury? I don't know. He probably will. He's a crazy person. But I think that would be the perfect place to have Takeshita beat Okada. And then, yes, it's my opinion, David, as well, that I think Okada is the next champion after Hangman. With the idea being that the All-In Wembley main event 2026 is Okada versus Osprey. So Okada probably beats Hangman around Revolution. Maybe the pay-per-view after that. What's that one called? Dynasty, is it the one after that? I think it's Dynasty. I could see it happen there either. But like somewhere like 5 6 months out from the Wembley show, have Okada beat title because you want Okada to be champion long enough that it feels like a big deal for him to lose it to Osprey, but not too long that it eats into what should be a really good reign for Hangman. Hangman's reign, in my opinion, has gotten off to a fairly good start. Not an unbelievable start, but a fairly good start with the Moxley TV defense and now the MJF Forbidden Door defense. But I actually feel like him and Kyle Fletcher might just have a match in them that tops Hangman's last three big singles matches. People might call me crazy, but I've been saying this on our podcast and on All Elite Morro for as long as I've been doing it. I think Fletcher is the best working heel in the business at the moment. What I mean by that is heel work in ring during matches is better than what anybody else is doing. And actually, I keep saying Hangman, MJF could learn a lot from him. MJF tends to go over the top to get his heel heat, whereas Fletcher does it in a much more subtle, nuanced way and generates the same level of heat, and it doesn't lead into the kind of screwy finishes we tend to get with MJF, and they get, I think, the same level of heat within their matches, and I think we'll see that elevated even higher when Fletcher's against a babyface as beloved as Hangman. Um, I think we're going to see the absolute best of Kyle Fletcher in this match. And I think that's perfect to go against what is ostensibly a nostalgia show from WWE. Cotton Crow says, is Nick Jackson the best tag wrestler to not have had a definitive singles run? You'd have to think that, like, is there any guy ever? Maybe like, I don't know, like Ricky Martin, they all kind of had like at some point. Bobby Eaton had singles runs, Arn had a single run, Tully had singles runs. Um, what other like super great tag wrestlers never had a singles run? And but like, firstly, like Nick Jackson's just one of the best tag wrestlers ever, anyway. Um, so I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's a better one. You're probably bang on there, Kyle. Like Nick Jackson in this match was phenomenal, phenomenal. He's just so good in these big multi-man tag matches. But like, obviously, yeah, he's one of the best tag wrestlers ever. And at this stage, he probably never will have a singles run. But you remember, like a few years ago, I think Matt Jackson was injured, and so they just used Nick on TV, not as like a singles wrestler, but they just put him in some singles matches. And him, and I think it was like New Year's Day 2020, they did a Nick Jackson versus Ray Phoenix singles match on Dynamite in Daly's place, and it was incredible. David says depends on if the match is overbooked or not. David, that's my worry. And you know what? The match is going to have some elements of overbooking. It's Don Callis family. Here's a problem I have with both WWE and AEW. When is the last time a pay per view main event didn't have some sort of overbooking? I think I think it was All in 2025. Brian Danielson versus Swerve. And even Hangman did come out there, but that wasn't overbooking, if you like, it wasn't too much shenanigans. But like the whole Mox run was all shenanigans because there was the big heel faction thing. I think it was Danielson versus Swerve at All in Wembley 2025 was the last time there wasn't like multiple types of shenanigans happening. And like, this is why when I talk about like what stylistically type of wrestling I prefer, so I just think that this has become American main event wrestling style. Not just AEW, not just WWE, just that's what people believe the bookers of both companies And you see it with TNA, you see it with MLW, you see it with like every indie show. Not every, I'm being unfair, but a lot of it. American wrestling has become the main event style overbooking, um, just like total, yeah, main event style has just become this overbooked thing. And like that's why I say about All Japan or New Japan in those two time periods I mentioned earlier being the style that I most prefer. There is no overbook, like there's no run-ins. It's all clean finishes, like 99% of the time. Uh, and like New Japan now has become same thing with Evil and that, like, was just every match they're running. It's just like, can I just have? I just think like if AEW just committed to, let's say, Hangman's title reign, whatever that is, we'll do 6 months with Hangman on top, and every world title match is going to have no interference, and it's going to end in a clean pinfall for 6 months, and then he's going to lose it to Okada. What if there was no interference? Everything was a clean pin, and then Don Callis in 6 months' time helped Okada beat him. Imagine the heat that would generate because we haven't seen it happen in 6 months. It would be phenomenal if a company was just willing to commit to that for 6 months. Any company, WWE could do it. We're going to do Seth Rollins defend. Well, he's a heel, but like whatever, Cody Rhodes is going to just go on a run where he just beats everyone and then he gets cheated out of it in 6 months' time. That would be phenomenal. Well, they actually tried that with Cody and it didn't fucking work anyway. But they did it shittily because that's what they do. Wardlow's injured again, Ron. How did he get injured? He didn't do anything physical. I missed this news. Fuck me, that guy can't catch a break. Look, I'm not the biggest Wardlow fan anyway. Um, but oh man, that's like I I'm not like other people think he should be pushed at a main event level. I don't. That's my opinion, not Wardlow's level. Particularly with torn pec. Oh, that's a monster injury. That's a 6 month minimum. Holy shit. Oh man. That's oh god. Like you like just announced by Fightful. Like that is heartbreaking for Wardlow because I do think he would have um he would have found a really nice position in the upper mid card as part of the Don Callis family. David Ayr said, should companies avoid doing the same stuff as the other companies, such as stipulation and big heel factions? Um, I suppose like that's a weird one because like we're all here on a Monday night talking wrestling, uh, so we're probably in the weeds more than most. But like just to a casual viewer who only watches AEW or only watches WWE, uh, from their perspective, then obviously not, you know. But from our perspective, who watch multiple companies probably semi regularly, then yeah, it feels like we're seeing a lot of the same shit. But like, is that on us because we watch X amount of different companies? Uh, yes, that's a weird question. Like, yeah, in my mind, yes, I would love if companies did different things and had more defined styles. Um, and not, they also did ladder matches in the same week. I remember the cage match one. The cage match was it the same around the time of the lights out cage match between Hangman and Swerve, and then WWE did one a few days later, uh, and that was really annoying. But like a year or two prior to that, I remember the Bucks had a ladder match, and then later that week, WWE had a ladder match, or earlier, whatever it was, I don't know the order. But like, if you were only watching WWE or you were only watching AEW, you would have only seen one ladder match that week. So I don't. That's like, yeah, like for us, like who are going to watch probably too much wrestling, it'd be great if they weren't doing. Oh, it was Osprey and Fletcher and Punk and Rollins. Yes, 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 yes. And the fucking Punk Rollins one was a nightmare because it did that shitty finish. Actually, both of those cage matches pissed me off because, like, here's another thing. A company needs to do 6 months of cage matches where nobody gets into the cage. You know, Um, yes, both having war games and the cash in prize is too much. That cash in thing should never, ever, ever, ever have been allowed to find its way into AEW. Whoever suggested it in the first place should be fired. That's such a WWE thing. It should have stayed there. It should never have been allowed in. That's my biggest one of all those things. Um, is the cash in thing. No, look, thankfully it's gone. But like, you don't need even to be carrying around a contract. Is you win the uh, casino gauntlet and you become the number one contender. That's enough. That's enough. The cash in AEW. There was times where it honestly made me want to turn off the TV. And as if you're in the chat, you know AEW is my current. Wow. You know AEW is my current favorite wrestling company to watch on a regular basis. I think they're doing it the best at the moment. Unfortunately, New Japan's a shit show. Noah's a bit of a shit show. Um, WWE, in my opinion, at the moment is a total shit show, despite the fact that they've done some exciting things with returns. AEW, despite the fact that a lot of their top stars are injured at the moment, is producing the best wrestling content around right now. Um, but if that changes, I'm not going to be loyal to a company putting on bad wrestling. But that cash in thing nearly made me turn off my TV several times. The War Games thing I don't mind because I think they're presented differently enough and the matches are wrestled differently enough from each other for the most part that I can get on board with. What annoys me more is WWE doing two in the one night. Uh, I think it should be every second year, men and women's, or they don't need to have Survivor Series. We're doing it. Even just ripping off the G1 for the C2. Yeah, no, the thing about that though, Ronan, is I have wanted a round robin tournament on my American wrestling TV for the longest time, at least 10 years. So I'm just delighted that somebody's doing a round robin tournament on what's a very, very easily accessible TV show for me. So I'm not totally against that. Yeah, Stadium Stampede slash Anarchy in the Arena, whatever you want to call it, should just be their War Games. I would agree with that. And like the AEW War Games matches, none of them were better than the Anarchy in the Arena or the Stadium Stampede matches. You know, so it always felt like some of them were good. Don't get me wrong, but none of them were better than the Anarchy or the Stadium Stampede matches. And they're like a lot of the time they were used as a follow up to Stadium Stampede or as a follow up to Anarchy in the Arena, and none of them topped the match that went before it. I do hope they do a women's version this year though. Just I want to see what that's like. Um, but yeah, I'm happy there's the Continental Classic. I would even like if they extended it to two groups of 10. I just love tournament wrestling, and to get it on American TV is a treat. And in the few years they've done it, it's been excellent. You know, there's been great wrestling in those, particularly the finals and the semi-finals have been amazing. But you always get like decent group stage matches as well. So I've been quite happy with the C2. Now it's neither incarnation has topped the best G1s I've seen. AW's War Games don't work with Submit for Surrender, in my opinion. Pinfall is much better. Yeah, it probably is. Because they've always found a way out of the submission thing. You know, nobody's ever just quit because I've gotten beaten up too much. It's always been like that. We're gonna throw this guy off the top of the cage if you don't submit. Um, okay, I submit. I'll be thrown off anyway. It's like, yeah, all right, like, but yeah, the way they've done it, like, I do like submit or surrender, but I haven't liked the way W have used it. So if they're not going to use it well, then I'd much prefer pinfall as well. Yeah, but like I said, none of their war games have ever topped any of the anarchies that are gone before it, or any of the stadium stampedes that are gone before it. So just stick with, like Ronan said there, just stick with that. It's better. Uh, Dynamite had its lowest ever ratings last week, and SmackDown had their lowest ever ratings last week. Is it time to panic for American wrestling? Well, I've done some homework on this, and the short answer is no, it's not time to panic. But it's really weird that both of them have done all-time lows within 5 days of each other. There was also nonsense time where Darby, yeah, said he'd light Jack Perry on fire. Yeah, exactly. Like they've always used the get out of jail free card to do the surrender part instead of someone just going right. They're beating the shit on me. I'm just going to quit. They've always tried to protect the losing team. Um, they also cut promos in the middle leading to finish there saying, yeah, Oshin and David saying the same thing. Like they've always used, and not always, but for the most part, they've used nonsense to get out of the finishes, um, which has always hurt those matches. I actually forgot about that one. That's the most recent one, isn't it? That was last year. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was more thinking of the thrown off the top one. Was that MJF and Jericho? Um, that was god awful as well. God, the Jack Perry one was worse. The Derby was more as much Derby's fault. That was worse. Um, but yeah, interestingly, Dynamite and SmackDown both did record low ratings in a 5 day spell. Um, so I dug into this a little bit, and it turns out, there was a lot of doom and gloom over this. And I was like, okay, it's weird that two companies did it. Maybe we're just burnt out in wrestling, so people aren't watching. However, two things happened. On the 1st of September, Nielsen changed slightly how they track the ratings. So that's just before both of these things happened. And on the 26th of August, they began readjusting what they call the universe estimates, i.e., in how many homes is the TV show available. So the ratings are like a percentage of that. So both of those things changed in the weeks leading into these two record low ratings. Um, but at the same time, if I like, so yeah, that might have played a factor in the record lows, and maybe it is that. Now, this week's ratings will tell us a lot. I don't think the SmackDown rating will tell us a lot this week unless it's crazy low, because it's going to get a bump from AJ Lee being back. But if it is low, I think that will tell us a lot that things are being adjusted the way ratings are tracked. Um, but if SmackDown, or if Dynamite's is low again, then I don't know if it's time to panic. But we need to find out if are these adjustments with Nielsen and the universe estimates affecting the ratings, or was it just a bad week for wrestling? Now, despite that, if I'm Triple H, SmackDown has been dog shit for a while, and he has his his creative team there. I'm making phone calls, going like, "What the fuck is going on? Why are ratings falling off a cliff here?" And if I'm Tony, I am like gathering my creative team around me, going, "Why are our ratings falling off a cliff? Is it a case that losing Osprey and Swerve has hurt our ratings? Is it a case that people aren't enjoying the people we're pushing at the moment and they don't want to tune in? Or is it a case that more people are migrating to Max, but he's not getting the numbers from Max?" Like, when those ratings came out last Thursday, if I'm Tony, the first thing I'm doing Friday morning is I'm calling Max, going, "Look, I need the data from Max, because the data I have tells me none of my people are over, and I need to know if they are over. Am I pushing the right people?" So I do think there is cause for concern for both AEW and WWE in terms of the ratings at the minute. We know the Raw ratings seem to be really poor on Netflix, but like that's a big experiment anyway. Um, we know that the SmackDown ones now look terrible, so there is cause for concern there. That's the biggest company in the world, and they're doing record low ratings. And last week's Dynamite was a terrible rating, so I'm concerned if I'm both companies. Now maybe these adjustments are taking place behind the scenes, and that's just the new normal. Or maybe it was just a bad week and both ratings bounce back next week. I'm never one to like panic over one bad week rating. Um, so we'll see this week. If it's down again around that 0.11 again, and there isn't adjustments happening to the Nielsen system, then I'm panicking big time if I'm Tony. I don't mean panicking in terms of like, right, we need to get the title off Hangman or blah, blah, blah. It's just like, I mean, in the sense that like, right, we need to adjust slightly how we think about our TV presentation. Like, I've loved the 2300 Arena, or ECW Arena residency but it does look a little bit cheap. It looks like a warehouse. But like we're all wrestling fans who all will have at least some sort of memories of the ECW arena, be it like Ring of Honor '06 or ECW '95, '96, '97, or watching back on old footage. Or if you're like a Mad Chikara fan in the early 2010s, um, or even like Dragon Gate USA did shows there. They had an unbelievable, I think it's 2010, Danielson Takagi match. That was in the 2300 arena. That is an unbelievable match. So like for guys like us who watch a lot of wrestling, we probably think the 2300 arena thing is cool, but maybe to just a general TV viewer, they're like, oh, this is wrestling in a warehouse. I'm not watching this tonight. That could be the case as well. So yeah, there is slight cause for concerns. With the streaming now, I won't be surprised if people casually watching back afterwards. Yeah, to fast forward past the ads and bad promos. Yep, Ronan is 100% spot on there. Look, I know we're on Irish time, but I watched Dynamite Thursday morning at 7 a.m. and you know, in that sense, I can skip through the what you call it, not the picture-in-picture stuff. You know, when they just showed this actually Dynamite thing on the screen, and you save like 15, 20 minutes that way. You get to watch the whole show in like an hour and 40 most of the time. And I wonder is there a lot of Americans doing that as well, because that's not captured in the Nielsen ratings. But apparently they're bringing in a system. So going forward, and it's not in yet, but going forward, um, they will be counting something like in the ratings will be counted people who watched it on DVR within the first 24 hours. So we'll actually have better data to know how these things are doing. I'd like to know if they track segments people skip straight to. See, Ronan, the mad thing is, Max are saying they can't track anything on the website, but that makes no sense. Like, how do they have a website that people are watching footage and they can't tell you which segments people are skipping and which segments people are like? To me, that has to be bullshit. Like, it has to be bullshit. You would think they'd have even more internal data if they're running a fucking streaming platform. Like what you're saying there, I'd like to know if they track segments people like surely that's trackable. Like I'm looking at the YouTube stuff now, right? And audience retention and things like that. I love like I know you love data. Like and you know way more about it than I do. I used to do a lot of data analysis in education in terms of using it as a predictor for exam results, using it as a predictor for um, using it as a predictor for what you call it, progress and so on. No, so it became I had to learn data while I was a teacher, or more while I was a vice principal, more than actually teaching. Teachers just input the data. The vice principal or whatever, or principal, depending on the setup in the school, they would be the ones who analyze the data and go through that and so on. WWE gives so much away on YouTube. You could consume everything important on Raw and SmackDown on YouTube. Shane's been saying that non-stop. You don't need to watch any WWE TV show. You could get everything important that happens on YouTube. Um, but surely, like that data is available. Oh yeah, sorry. So I was saying I'm looking at audience retention and stuff, and so we've done the first two episodes. We've released the first two episodes of Total Extreme Morrow, episode 0 and episode 1. And what I found, they're obviously lower overall viewers than our podcast, but they actually have a higher audience retention. So people who are watching them are tending to watch them more or less to the end. And I can see the parts on YouTube that people jump to. So they'll skip, like a lot of people will just kind of skip through it and watch me give the results of the show, but not watch me going through what my roster looks like and all that kind of stuff. So they're just doing it purely for the results. I think that's really cool. But if I can get that on YouTube, surely Max have that data for Dynamite, and surely Netflix have that data for WWE. Like, yeah. So, and if I'm Tony, I'm looking for that data, because if I see that, oh, a lot of people are skipping past my Hurt Syndicate, segments, then I'm going to feature them less or do something different with them. Uh, card announced card so far for All Out. Will I do a watch along for All Out? It's on a fucking 8 p.m. Irish time. I might do a watch along. I don't know if Shane will do one with me, but I might do one. So far we have Copeland and Cage versus FDR. They've done a really good job building that, despite the fact that like I'm personally not mad for Copeland and Cage in 2025, but I do think some good TV will come out of it. And that first angle they shot was exceptional. Hurt Syndicate, all three of them versus Ricochet and Gates of Agony, cool. They probably should have got the trios titles on somebody for that match. Mercedes versus Rio. Rio's back. What do people think of that? Um, Moxley versus Darby Allin in a coffin match. Darby Allin has a fantastic record in coffin matches in terms of always being good. MJF versus Mark Briscoe. Obviously, that's going to be awesome. Timeless Tony Storm versus Jamie Hayter versus Chris Lander versus Tekla. I can't see them beating Tony in a four-way, but I think this will set up our next singles challenge. I think this will be a really good match. And obviously not officially added to the card, but probably be officially added on Wednesday, will be Fletcher versus Hangman. So six matches, more or less confirmed. Looking like a really good card. Running at 8 p.m. Irish time. That's right, Oshin. I don't need Shane for a watch-along when I have all of you fine people. Yeah, I might do it. I need to check. Do I have anything on that day that would stop me from doing it? But like Saturday, September 20th, nothing's ringing a bell. MJF Briscoe needs to. Yeah, it's slated on some forums I'm in to have. I think we're going to find out the stip on Wednesday, but there will be a stip, is what I've heard on in a Discord group I'm in. So the time change, obviously, people are criticizing Tony for moving back to 3 in the day, and it's been seen as like a bitch move to not go head to head with WrestlePalooza. But I think I'm of the personal opinion that's a smart move, because we saw what happened with that Saturday night's main event, Goldberg's retirement match, when Tony was obviously going early with Forbidden Door because it was in the UK, so it was 3 p.m. American time, or even it might be even 2 p.m. Well, it's supposed to have different time zones. But it was almost like Tony burnt out the wrestling audience. So by the time it came to the WWE show later that night, people were they had their fill of wrestling for the day. So I actually think initially I was like, I would have loved if he'd gone head to head. But also, no, get in early, burn out the audience. So people just don't want to watch more wrestling. Like if you do, because All Out will be a 4 hour show, guaranteed to be 4 hours. And when it gets, so they do start at 3 o'clock East Coast, we'll say, right? And they get to 7 p.m. East Coast. Are people going to want to watch another 4 hour wrestling show straight after that in America? They could, like, I actually think by getting in early and doing a great show, then people will be like, oh, you know what? It's 8 p.m. Saturday night. I'm not going to sit in and watch another wrestling show. I just watched one. I'll go and go out and go for dinner, go to a bar, do whatever. I think they could actually be capturing the audience there and burning them out before the WWE show starts. Could be it could be a massive failure as well. But like, it looks like the Forbidden Door show did about 130,000, between 120 and 130,000 pay-per-view buys, which is very good. And that was at 3 o'clock in the day. So I think Tony looked at that number, 130,000 pay-per-view buys at 3 o'clock in the day. I will take that again for All Out. I'll be more than happy with 130,000 pay-per-view buys. Let's do it. And yeah, who wants to watch Cena and Brock after an AEW show? Like, the surest bet in all of wrestling is an AEW pay-per-view. Sometimes the TV is a bit uneven. I actually, maybe Collision is the surest bet. That show's just a banger every week, even though it's not like you don't get always the big stars, but you get some of the best wrestling. But the surest bet, and this is going on 6 years now. In 6 years, how many actual bad pay-per-views have AEW done? I don't know if they've done any bad ones. They've done a few mediocre ones. they've done a few like, oh yeah, that was good, and they've done a lot of, oh my god. Like, how many times after an AEW pay per view do you hear people say that's the best pay per view I've ever seen in my life? Now, sometimes that's just the initial buzz of it or whatever. Um, but their pay per view record in terms of quality is just utterly exceptional. And if you get a 4 hour one of those pay per views that you turn around after and go, that was an exceptional pay per view, go back to Forbidden Door. If, let's say, Hangman and Kyle Fletcher main event, if they can do something like what um, Hangman and Osprey did at Forbidden Door, is anyone is anyone going to care about Cena and Brock after that? I don't think so. So they have a chance to actually wreck the audience, like burn out the audience before the WWE show starts. WWE is putting on a show for the casuals. Yeah, it's just nostalgia. Like this, particularly this show, is pure nostalgia driven. This WrestlePalooza one, and like pure like let's capture some casuals. But let's say 120,000 people buy All Out, which would be kind of the low end of my prediction. That's more than 120,000 people watching it. So that would probably be somewhere in the region of slightly over 200,000 people watching it. Probably like for every buy, 1.5 people watching. So somewhere in the region of about 200,000 people watch it. That might be close to 200,000 people who don't turn over and watch WrestlePalooza. Because a lot of those will go like, if we're in Ireland, we're going, right, I'll go to bed now. It's midnight, it's 1 a.m. I've just watched 4 or 5 hours of wrestling. I'm going to bed. I'm not going to stay up and watch another few hours. If you're in America, it might be a case of like, I've got my satisfaction of wrestling for the day. I'm going to a bar, I'm going to a restaurant, I'm doing whatever. I'm going to get out and about. So they might kill the audience. Aaron Reynolds says even when when the TV was at its worst, the pay per view was always delivered. Yeah, like you look there, 2024. 2024 might be their best pay per view year, and that's the year where, arguably 2023, but possibly 2024 was the year when their TV was, in my opinion, at its worst. But it might actually be their best pay per view year. That was the year where you had Okada debuting on pay per view, doing his Eddie Kingston matches, doing his Pac match. He had a couple of other good matches, can't remember off the top of my head. You had Osprey's insane run of pay per view matches. You had Danielson's insane run of pay per view matches. You had Swerve's insane run of pay per view matches. Like, so 2024 might have been their best ever year in terms of pay per view quality. And at the same time, the TV was, am I going to say dog shit? Probably not dog shit, but just like not good, fine at best. But the pay per views were off. Like, that's why I call it the surest bet in wrestling. You can trust AEW. Like, if you're going to spend your money on an AEW pay per view, you know it's going to deliver. Yeah, I stopped watching weekly last year, but never missed pay per view. That says it all. I think it's so many people did that. I stopped watching Collision last year, and I didn't watch every Dynamite, but I watched most of them. But it got to a stage where it felt like a slog. Like, it really felt like a slog. And then just a little plug. This is OTT here in Ireland. They're running a tour at the moment. So they've done the first two of that, Contenders in Dublin last week and Belfast Comic Con at the weekend. Shout out to Shane O'Keefe. I saw him reffing a match, and I saw Frankie Vendetta wrestle a couple of matches over the weekend. But they're coming up in a tie soon. Tullamore, Finglas, Invasion in Limerick. That's going to be a pretty big one. That's going to be on video on demand. Then they're doing a show in Carlow on October 4th. That's near me. Might try and go to that. October 11th, they're doing Invasion in Drogheda. I think this is the second or third Invasion show. Then they're back to Sheriff Street on October 18th. Then the big one, October 25th, 11th year anniversary, Dublin. Ronan, put a Y in the chat if we're going. If you're there still, Ronan, I'm assuming you're going to be there October 25th in the stadium for the 11th anniversary OTT show. I'm definitely going. I'm 100% going to that one. I'm finding a way no matter what I have on. I'll be there. October 26th in Belfast. Won't be going to that. Too far from Kilkenny. Might try and pop down to October 27th in Wexford, and then December 6th live in Killarney in Kerry. So that's the Irish scene. Loads going on. I'm hearing rumors of a big name for the anniversary show. I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but the rumors are going around that there's a name coming in. And also, I feel like we're going to get some huge matches coming out of this Be Cool and Joe Cabre storyline that's rocking at the moment. Yeah, nothing beats an OTT Stadium show. That's also a sure bet in professional wrestling. OTT in the National Stadium never lets you down. Yeah, banger show today. Um, Thanks a million, everyone, for popping into the chat. We covered a lot of ground. I feel like I've glossed over a load of stuff, yet we still went an hour and 15 minutes. We had a new microphone here. I hope it was sounding good. I forgot to put on the front light that I was using to make me look even prettier. But yeah, oh yeah, have I taken a bump in Shane's gardening yet? I have not. He only finally got it set up about 25 minutes before I was going live on this. So I do plan on taking a bump in Shane's garden ring in the very near future. And we might get it on video, even Ron. We might get it on video. Um, and then we've Total Extreme Morrow now. Me booking, that's the gaming one where I booked WCW 1992. The next episode of that is coming on Wednesday. It's fucking 2 hours and 12 minutes. All right, I made a film. I made a movie of my fucking Super Brawl 1992 WCW booking game. Oh my god. I had about 10 hours of footage. What was I doing? Will Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show be running training classes in Shane's back garden? Uh, Stay tuned, Carl. Stay tuned. I can't. I'll let Shane talk about that. We also have an episode coming on. It might be out today, actually. Today or tomorrow. I'm assuming it didn't get edited over the weekend with Shane wrestling in Belfast all weekend. Um, or Matthew was probably editing it. It might be ready to go. Myself, John, Kieran, and Shane, we got the 4-man booth back together. So that'll be out very soon. That was a really fun episode. We did kind of an episode on wrestlers who got in their own way, whose careers were uh, who ruined their own careers by just being like hard to work with or fucking things up. So that's coming out. You have Total Extreme Morrow coming Wednesday, 2 hours 12 minutes. I'm so sorry. I've also edited the following episode after that, and it's an hour. So I'm going to keep that to an hour. But fucking that one, I just went 2 hours. I just went crazy deep into it, into the booking game, and yeah. So that's coming, and then Oshin, I promise you, you're going to get a chops match at some stage between myself and I'm not taking on Frankie Vendetta. I want to take on the big beefy boy, Shaz Beef. So yeah, plenty coming on the channel. Thank you very much, everyone, and I'll talk to you all soon.